There's only one thing that's running through my soul, and that is
Happy Hump Day. Happy Wednesday. This is the Crimson Dynasty. We are one of the shows here on the Bama Standard Network, which I know a lot of you are familiar with, but I do want to welcome those who are new here. Be sure to go ahead and hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any content. We're dropping content throughout the week. Go ahead and hit up that live chat. We love to engage with our viewers, so be sure to be very active in the live chat tonight. Even the haters, we got time tonight. So my name is Sishi. I'm the host of Crimson Dynasty, and I have two of the best co-hosts, Dan James IV, the lead recruiting analyst for the Bama Standard Network, and JB from Sunday Nights Talking Bama. So we'll have them promote their shows later on this evening. Now, before we get started, though, I do want to give a shout out to one of our newer sponsors, Limestone Company. So if you've dreamed of having a beautiful natural stone in or around your home, don't settle for subpar materials. Check out Limestone Company's selection of natural stone products to meet all of your project needs. Limestone is actually located in Oneonta, Alabama, and it's one of the oldest and most trusted sources in the state. So contact them today and tell them that we sent you by using promo code TheBamaStandard to receive 10% off of your first order. And we do have their website in the banner below. Now, we just want to go ahead and jump right into it. There's a lot to talk about. It's been a lot, and it's a lot of noise, but we're built like that. We're built for it, so it's nothing new per se. However, there's a lot to talk about. We're coming off of that L against Vanderbilt, which was kind of like it was a shocker to some to most of us, I would say, but there were certain issues that we've been seeing throughout the season. So first things first is that I want to get into some of the latest news. One of our defensive guys hitting the portal, which actually means, and this is Jehiem Oatis, but what this means for Alabama, and for those who are not as familiar with him, he's a defensive tackle. He's been on the team for a few years, but what this means for Alabama is that essentially he's going to be sitting on the bench if they allow him to stay on the sideline until the portal reopens, which is, I believe later this year. And so he's not planning to play anymore now. I want to get y'all's perspectives on this, because when I saw it, I'm like, okay, so you didn't enter the portal when we beat Georgia. I'm sure you were one of the ones running around, excited, which, rightfully so. But what's the change within a week between beating Georgia and losing to Vanderbilt? What could have been that change? And I want our audience to get involved as well on this topic, because I've heard different perspectives about Jehiem Oatis hitting the portal, and everyone they can do whatever they want to do, but the reasoning behind it is what I want to hear more about. So I'm going to actually start with our co-host Dan. I'll kick it off with you first. What are your thoughts on Jehiem Oatis hitting the portal, and what type of impact will this have on Bama Nation?
It's a slight loss for depth wise. He wasn't getting much opportunity. Different schematic approach. Defensively, and so he was just trying to find his niche, like a lot of the guys are along the line. So last year we played him a lot at end. He came in as a natural 0-1 technique. Then we started using the 3-4 technique last year. And, now he's trying to find his niche in the 4-2-5. And, it seemed like other guys were passing him up as far as snap counts. And so, I guess, it was just scheme fit, so I say slightly a mild loss, but, a guy like that, you just wish him well, but, for him to redshirt during the season, I don't think, it'd be beneficial to us to have him on the sidelines.
Yeah, I like that perspective. And really quickly, before I toss it to JB, to the audience, those who are listening in, be sure to drop in the chat, because our audience is very engaging, and so some of them you'll be able to communicate with, but be sure to drop in the chat your thoughts on what the level of impact will be with Oatis, essentially redshirting, and what are your thoughts on that? I mean, should the coaches allow him to still be on the sideline with the team? I mean, I'm curious what y'all think about that. Now, JB, what are your thoughts? Because I see you shaking your head. How do you feel about Jehiem Oatis hitting the portal at the timing that he did? And then what do you think that looks like as far as Alabama moving forward?
I want to say it was a selfish move on his behalf because it was a time period that you could hit the portal. You didn't burn the minimum amount of games to play. He wasn't getting the playing time. So you're just gonna be sitting around, like you say, if they allow him to sit around. I don't think they should. I don't think he should be allowed to sit with the team if he's not playing and he's not going to be there next year. It's not like you're injured. Now, I did remember back in the spring A-Day, I think he was injured. He was nicked up a little bit. He didn't play a lot at A-Day. He was one of the guys I was looking for to make an impact this season. Wade changed his number. He was supposed to be one of the big dogs on the D-line along with Tim Kenan III. But it just seems like he don't fit the scheme, or something personal's going on, or maybe he just got his position too. And we probably won't know the 100% full story on it because you will hear different stories on it. But I just feel like it was selfish on his behalf at this point in time to announce I'm hitting the portal.
Yeah. Especially coming off of a very emotional game, or emotional loss rather against Vanderbilt, and to almost give up on your team like that, because all of them, I'm sure, shared the same frustrations. I mean, we saw, Malachi Moore, which I didn't, really agree with that, but we saw, you know what I mean? Like everyone shared the same frustrations as far as the team. Now, looking on the outside in, we feel how we feel, but I can only imagine when you're out there on the field and you're playing and then to be laughed at like that, which Alabama has been the headline in the sports world since that game. So, it's not even just that you're quitting Alabama, you're quitting your players, your so-called brothers, you know what I mean? So, but I did see one of our former safeties, Clinton Dix, he wasn't short on words, regarding that. Now, he didn't specifically call out his name, but it was pretty obvious, what he was saying. He shared the exact same sentiments as us. So, shout out to him for that, because it's like, with the adversity that the team faced earlier this year when Coach Saban retired, and the fact that he chose to stay, he was one of the ones that chose to stay, and then you just, you quit like that. But like y'all said, we never really know what was going on in the background. So yeah, well, we can only pray for the best and just hope that it doesn't negatively impact the rest of the players. Now, if you're watching us on X right now, be sure to head over to our YouTube channel, the Bama Standard, and subscribe, because we're also live streaming there as well. So be sure to head over to our YouTube channel. That's where we like to engage with the audience, and you do have to be signed in to do that. But let's move on though, because we're talking about Jehiem Oatis, but then let's kind of get into the rest of the defensive players. And let's talk about who from Alabama, particularly our defense, who needs to step up. I mean, I'll start this off because I know that y'all are going to go in. Now, from my perspective, I would say all of them, because to be honest, now a lot of the issues that we saw this past weekend, it had a lot to do with coaching. The play calling was horrendous. Kane Womack, he needs to be the one to step up, and quite frankly, I would rather see him step out, to be honest, if he's going to be doing some mess like that. You know what I mean? Like, don't put us in a bad position like that, because we got the best talent in the nation. Ain't no reason why we should be losing to no raggedy Vanderbilt like that, and they acting like they tearing down goalposts like that. Like, what? And it still didn't land them in the top 25. Like, it was just pathetic. But I want to get y'all's perspectives. From my perspective, Kane Womack needs to step up or step out. I'm cool with either one. Now, as far as our guys on the defense, especially that first and second string, all of them need to step up. Like what we saw that first half against Georgia, that needs to be all 4 quarters, every single game, no excuses. And so I'm going to toss it to you first, JB. What are your thoughts? Any specific defensive players who need to step up? And then how do we move forward from this?
I got a whole list. So I'm just going to go with a whole position group, and that's the defensive line. All right. So Jeremiah Beeman, Eldrick Hill, Tim Kenan III, Jamarian Latham, not Jehiem Oatis, Hunter Osborne, LT Overton, Damon Payne Jr., Jordan Renard, James Smith, and Tim Smith. I'm calling all of them out. Even though I know James Smith's playing well, Tim Kenan's playing well, but I got to call y'all out as a whole defensive line group. Y'all got to step it up, man, because that was unacceptable last week against Vandy. You were getting pushed around like JV, pretty much. And the running backs, those guys were getting 5-6 yards a pop on first down. So that's already going to put you in behind the chains as a defensive group. the ultimate goal is to get the next first down, and that's what Vandy was doing. But you also, the guys on the back end, the linebackers and the DBs, you're putting them in a bad position, because if the running back goes straight through your D line, your linebackers already got 5 or 6 yards before your linebackers even touch them. So it's really putting you in a bad position if your D line can't stop the run, can't get pushed against the O line, and you can't rush the passer with just the D line. It's not good. So I'm calling all those guys out. No hard feelings, but y'all gonna have to step up as a unit together, because you have to play on one accord if you're gonna win on the front line, and the game is won in the trenches. So I got to call the whole group out, man.
Yeah. I mean, but it's nothing but respect to that. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, we talk about the standard all day long. We always talking about where legends are made. Well, are they really? Like we gotta, you know, like you said, we gotta play as a full unit. Now, I want those that are watching, be sure to put your thoughts in the chat. Who do you feel like from the defensive side of the ball needs to step up? And feel free to name, you know, specific names. I'm sure y'all probably share the same names. Yeah. Go ahead and drop those. Yeah. Shout out to Brandon, bro. Vandy was blocking our 3 with their 6. You can't win that way. You can't win that way unless you have an Aaron Donald. Yeah. That's true.
Right,
that's
Brandon.
true.
That's it.
That goes to what she said.
6 blocking 3 to 4. That's a numbers game.
It goes right back to this sorry coaching. And I don't know the level of relationship that the players, you know, have with Kane Womack and how comfortable they feel with him right now, but we can call him out because that was pathetic. And even in his little sorry press conference, I don't recall hearing him fully take responsibility or actually coach DeBoer. So if you're going to ask the players to take responsibility, you man up and you take responsibility too, because it starts at the top. So if your little raggedy coaching scheme is going to have just a few guys out there up front, but then we're going against 6 guys, what? Like that logic, mathematically, that doesn't make sense. So it's just, he needs to go back to the drawing board. He can go back to Mobile is what he could do. Now, Dan, before I start going off, what are your thoughts? Like who specifically from the defensive side of the ball needs to step up? And do you feel like percentage wise, do you feel like a lot of the onus is on the defensive players or on Kane Womack in specific?
Oh, I say 80 to 90% of it is on the defensive coaches.
Yep.
You know, anytime you got 6 blocking 4, you know, I talked about it going into the game. This game was about, you know, gap integrity. We didn't have that at all. And it was no way. And, you know, we could have brought in an extra D lineman, anything, but, you know, to not be able to make any adjustments, the unwillingness to make any adjustments throughout the game, that cost us. That was poor coaching. That was horrible defensive game plan. On 3rd down, it was easy, simple mesh route. You know, you pick the linebacker, you hit the running back on the swing pass or the tight end on the little slant. It was too easy. You know, anybody could see it coming. You know, so they know what cover. We're playing the same thing. Cover one, I know y'all seen it on social media. You know, cover one robber the whole entire game. We didn't mix it up. We didn't mix up. We did a little bit, but we didn't mix up coverage too much. You know, not enough. You know, it was a horrible defensive game plan. But the player that I want to call out is Malachi Moore. Yeah. You know, I want to see, can you put that, you know, incident behind you? Can you come out and lead this team and make plays? You know, show us that you're a leader. You don't have to show us anything. You don't owe us anything. Show it to yourself and your teammates. Come out and be a leader and lead this defense to a better performance. You know, stay on your coach. You're right. Get the signals in quicker. You know, that helps out a lot. A lot of times I've seen it. I saw it in the South Florida game. You know, you got linebackers looking to the sideline. You know, it's ridiculous. You know, we got to be fast and play smarter. But, you know, it's going to take a lot of film study and a lot of reps in practice, because this week, I think, you know, last week they just went through the motions after the Georgia win and thought we could just roll in and just beat Vandy.
Dan, I got a question for you. Do you think these coaches, these position coaches, are learning on the fly how to coach against SEC? Because they haven't coached against the SEC like that.
Yeah.
Possibly, but still, you know, that we could have been playing App State and we would have been in trouble. You know what I'm saying? Not
App State.
Man, it's just, you know, we had no no type of game plan for the option. You knew it was coming.
Yeah.
We didn't stop it. We didn't stop it from the first snap. You know, that's horrible. They didn't see much, if any, third and long. You know, we didn't get them in third and long where we're going to utilize our pass rush. You know, but you got a mobile quarterback. You definitely want to keep them in third and long. You know, you want to kind of condense the pocket. You know, you want to put your defense in a good position to be able to win on third downs. We failed to do that.
Yeah. Y'all hit the nail on the head. It looks like those in the chat, you know, they feel the same way. So, and I think the scariest thing, and we're gonna move on, but I do think the scariest thing is that at halftime, for the coaches to go back there during halftime and not make any adjustments, to me means that they didn't see any issues with how we performed in the first half. And that's a problem, because if we saw it, and if we can sit here and say that we need to make adjustments after the first half, they should have said that too. But, you know, I don't know. I think there was a lot of outroar, even from, you know, those in the ESPN space and CBS and everywhere else, where they have to have heard something. I don't know if they're going to hear us, but they're going to hear something, you know, as far as the coaches, because we ain't going out like that. I mean, that almost reminded me of Pete Golden, the way that the guys were kind of looking at each other, trying to figure out what to do next. Like, we're not doing that. Like that's behind us. So no, we're not doing it now. But we do want to look. And I see people. Yeah, folks are blaming Freddie Roach. JB, how you feel about that? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't agree with that. How can we blame Freddie Roach? Freddie Roach has been there for years. Freddie Roach is one of the best recruiters. The D-line position used to be elite at Alabama. It was elite, but it wasn't with the 4-2-5 base defense that we had. We were in the 3-4. We were in different defense. So this is the first, now we play variations of the 4-2-5 throughout. You put different defense in, but to stay the whole game in one defense, not be able to switch out, it ain't on Freddie Roach. I can tell you that. It's not on Freddie. So
no dime rabbits, nothing anymore. You know,
nothing. You couldn't even get in the down bad defense when to stop a 4th and 1.
Yeah. I think people are reaching a little bit, but you know, I do think that the onus has a lot to do with coaching, though. But I feel like a lot of it has to do with just, you know, DeBoer coming in, Coach Womack, and them just not being as familiar, you know, playing against the SEC level schools. But hopefully this was their wake up call, because to be honest, when Tennessee lost that game against Arkansas, and I had a feeling that they would lose, I just had a strong feeling. I'm like, yeah, I think that they're going to be the ones to beat them. When they lost, I was like, our game against Tennessee in a couple weeks, that's got the stakes are the highest that it's ever been. Because that's going to be the game changer right there. That right there is going to be and that's where, especially our players, we're going to have to put our money where our mouth is. So that's going to be the game. You know, they talked about our game against Georgia. That's going to be the game, especially coming off of this loss. Now, I do want to pivot though, you know, speaking of our upcoming game against South Carolina. So I do want to kind of talk about, you know, certain players there, but before we really deep dive into South Carolina and their key players, you know, they're 3-2 this season. They had a bye week the week before their last game, which was Ole Miss, but they did have a bye week a couple weeks ago, and their 2 losses are against LSU and Ole Miss. So both of those were home games, but their notable win was against Kentucky at Kentucky, which was early on in the season. South Carolina won 31-6. Now we're their second road game and their 4th SEC matchup this season. So it was just a couple things that I wanted to call out from a team perspective, and then I want to get y'all's takes on their actual players and, you know, just kind of understand what we're working with. So first things first, their win against Kentucky, South Carolina's quarterback, he actually accounted for almost half of their plays on the ground. They did well in terms of passing, but, you know, they didn't have too many plays in the air at the same time. So the quarterback was actually sacked like 4 times. And that's something that I noticed across the board in their SEC games, is that, you know, the I guess how easy it was for the opponent to get to their quarterback. So that's something worth mentioning. South Carolina, they struggle in terms of penalties. In that game against Kentucky, they had like 8 penalties, 1 interception. And then you look at their loss against LSU. LSU, South Carolina's passing game, it was actually worse in terms of completion percentage. They had more plays on the ground, but they had about 3 times the number of rushing yards in their game than in their game against Kentucky. So again, their quarterback accounted for half the plays on the ground. So this guy likes to run. And he also was sacked 5 times in the game against LSU. Now, LSU's quarterback was sacked twice, but this just kind of, it gives you, I guess, an idea of, maybe some struggles that they could have as far as their offensive line. You look at their loss against Ole Miss. They lost that game 27-3. South Carolina had more plays on the ground, but they had less rushing yards. It seems like they weren't as effective in their run game than they were, when they play LSU. But at the same time, South Carolina, they had fewer passing yards in their losses against LSU and Ole Miss than in their, win against Kentucky. That's kind of something worth noting. But then last but not least, South Carolina's quarterback was sacked 6 times in their game against Ole Miss. So that's another thing to mention. And I believe in their game against LSU, they had about 13-ish penalties and like 3 turnovers, I think 2 fumbles and then 1 interception. So they've had some struggles. I know we talk about our penalties, but they've had quite a few as well. Now, JB, I want to start with you. Actually, I'm going to kick it off. Let me kick it off with Dan first, because I believe, Dan, do you have the quarterbacks?
Oh, I got no, I have the receiver and
okay. Let's start with the quarterback. Yeah. Let's do the quarterback first. Okay. Because there's some injuries that we kind of want to note. So let's start with the quarterback first. JB, I'm gonna kick it off with you, then Dan, and then I'll go with my players.
Okay. So as we know, LaNorris Sellers is the starting quarterback freshman. He's a little banged up, not sure if he's gonna play or how much he will play, but I'm gonna talk about him anyway. He's a freshman, 6'3", 240, big kid, dual threat. So his numbers on the season are 49 for 85, 555 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. He's been sacked 16 times. That's not good. So as you know, if he's in there, we can get to him if we bring a pass rush.
Yep.
But they have a backup quarterback that we should be familiar with, Mr. Robbie Ashford, formerly from Auburn. He's 6'2", 230, pretty big kid, dual threat. And I say that very loosely. I say the dual threat very loosely because he's more of a runner. But he's 18 for 26, 292 yards, 2 touchdowns on the season. Most of that was against Akron a few weeks ago when they played Akron, and he showed out. But I want to talk about the rushing aspects on these quarterbacks. Sellers has 55 carries for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. Ashford, 34 carries, 172 yards and a touchdown. So your your quarterbacks are producing at a running back rate. Now, as a team, they rushing for 920 yards and 11 touchdowns on the ground, 4 yards a carry. They have more rushing yards than they do passing yards. So it could be a very interesting matchup, especially for Bama. And it could be a big test for us because we just saw what happened to our running defense. These guys, don't be surprised. If Sellers can play, don't be surprised if we see Sellers, Ashford, and Rock Sanders in the backfield together. You saw they played the damn wishbone. They ran the wishbone on us this past week. And I'm more pissed off we lost to the wishbone than anything. Don't be surprised they throw some gadget plays. Shane Beamer is pretty much, I don't want to say he's on the hot seat, but he can't keep losing all these games like that. He need a big win. Shane Beamer needs a big win at South Carolina. They've struggled this year. They had some close games. But this right here can be one of those games where, hell, we just saw what happened to Bama. We're going to come in their house. We're going to try to bring the energy to them. Bama just going to have to step up, man. We're going to have to be very organized, not make mistakes, and like Dan would say, gap control is very key because you don't know if these guys gonna run the ball. I'm just gonna flat out and they're gonna run the ball. These quarterbacks are not a threat throwing the ball. I don't know about the wide receiver production, but I'm just talking about the quarterbacks right now. And I don't know, man. I'm gonna say, watch out for the quarterbacks running. Watch out for the gadget plays, and don't be surprised if Sellers does play. You see Ashford and Sellers in the backfield with Rock Sanders.
Okay. Did you have any other guys or? You're good?
No, that was it. That was it.
Those are your ones. Okay.
Yeah, those
Okay.
are my ones. Yep.
I think, yeah, those are definitely worth mentioning. Like you mentioned, Robbie's connection to Auburn, and he's gonna have that type of attitude or chip on his shoulder. But we built for that. So all right, and then Dan, who did you have on your list of guys we need to kind of watch out for?
Like JB said, you definitely got to watch out for Sellers and Robbie Ashford. But there's a third part, and that's the first part, because we're gonna see the option. And it starts with the first option to dive, and that's Raheem Rocket Sanders, a 6 foot, 230 pound running back. He's gonna keep us honest, So we got to make sure we fill in that A gap, because he's a former first team All SEC player out of Rockledge, Florida. He was All SEC at Arkansas for 3 years. He spent 3 years at Arkansas. Last year he was hurt. They were expecting a big season out of him and KJ Jefferson. They made a formidable duo, but he got injured and hit the portal. And now he's at South Carolina, and he's a monster. He's a monster to bring down. So he's gonna allow Sellers and Ashford to get to the edge, just because the presence that he brings with the ball in his hand. So we got to make sure, we got to play gap assignments, gap integrity, Coach Womack, gap integrity. That's what it's gonna take. We're gonna see the same thing that Vanderbilt gave us. So we got to make sure we're ready for it. And the other player I want to talk about is Mazeo Bennett. He's a guy I like very much coming out of high school. Actually, Bama recruited him out of high school. He chose South Carolina in February of 2023. Bama really liked him. They recruited him as early as his junior year. He rolled with the Gamecocks, but he's the leading receiver for South Carolina. 14 receptions for 200 yards. He's a possession receiver. He's the type of guy that can gash you, especially when the pocket breaks down, the quarterback out. He's the guy that they're going to be looking for. So we got to make sure that we play our assignment and we don't let the quarterback get on the edge too much outside of the pocket. Because he's a guy that can hurt us downfield. His best game was against Akron. He had 5 receptions for 71 yards and a touchdown. And he had a big game against Kentucky. He had 3 receptions, 63 yards and a touchdown in the win of the blowout of Kentucky. So he's a guy that's very capable of making the plays. But like I said, it's all going to start with Rocket Sanders. He's going to be a load to bring down. So we got to make sure, we wear our heavy shoulder pads. Yeah.
And it sounds like he's a little banged up, so that we'll see. We'll see about that. Did you have anyone else besides those two? Those are your main two.
Those two mainly.
Okay.
Plus the quarterbacks. Of course, those are going to be the ones we're going to have to worry about.
Right. So you mentioned the wide receiver Mazeo. So speaking of receivers, because I like that you covered him, there's a tight end, Joshua Simon. Now he's a senior, but this is his second year at South Carolina. He was at Western Kentucky the last few years, and he actually, when he was at Western Kentucky, they played Auburn, and so shout out to the little raggedy Auburn fans that's in our chat right now. But when they played Auburn, he had 2 touchdowns in that game. He had a pretty good game in that game. However, last year at South Carolina, which was his first year, he only had about 250 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. This year already, he already has over 100 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. And that touchdown was in their game against Kentucky. He's been averaging about 11 yards per reception. I do think he's going to, when we think about just that creative factor from the coaching side of things, I do think that he's someone that they're going to try to work into whatever that looks like. I believe that he's going to be a guy that we see out there. However, there were a couple guys on the defense that I wanted to mention, and one of them is Nick Emanwari. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, but he's a safety. He's a junior. So during his first season at South Carolina, he had over 80 total tackles, right? And last year he had over 70 total tackles, 2 interceptions. This year so far has about 30 total tackles and 2 interceptions, and one of those resulted in a touchdown in their game against Kentucky. And I believe another interception was in their game against LSU. So he's been doing his thing. He had 8 solo tackles in their game against LSU, and he leads the team in number of total tackles, and he's tied with Jalen Kilgore in number of interceptions. So that's going to be a guy, like I said, he's a safety. So when we think about just our passing game, y'all gonna see that name out there for sure. Another guy, he's an edge rusher, Kyle Kennard. This guy's a senior. It's his first year at South Carolina. He was previously at Georgia Tech for a few years. He had over 50 total tackles and 1 interception last year when he was playing at Georgia Tech. And then this year so far, he has about 10 total tackles, 2 forced fumbles. One of those was in their game against Kentucky, and then over 5 sacks, one of which was in their game against Kentucky and 2 in their game against LSU. So this guy is good as well. We talk about that edge rush, and how that may impact because this is going to be a test for our O-line for sure. And then just seeing Jalen Milroe being mobile, coming in and out of the pocket and all of that. So I do think that Kyle Kennard is another guy. One other guy, Debo Williams. I'm not going to go into too much detail on him, but he's a linebacker. He's a senior, over 20 total tackles. So this is another guy that's worth mentioning. But I think that, I feel like the guys that we've mentioned thus far, these are definitely going to be guys that we see out there. They see us coming off of that L against Vanderbilt. They think that they're going to do the same thing, but they are not. But those are going to be some of the guys that we do see. Now, I do, let's see, can you talk about what Ole Miss did? And for those in the chat, be sure to drop some questions because we do have our Q&A session coming up shortly, but be sure to add your questions in the live chat. And then from Justin, JB, can you talk about what Ole Miss did to limit Dylan Stewart and Kyle Kennard?
Well, they wasn't effective. They wasn't effective at getting to the quarterback. So I feel like for us to do the same thing, Milroe's gonna have to make quick decisions, of course. You know what I'm saying? And Elijah Pritchard, do not let nobody get around you. Come on, man. That was really a bad play that cost us momentum and possibly the game. So just get the guy. Don't let the guy go around you. You know what I'm saying? But Milroe, he's been doing a great job far as, seeing the pressure, except that one play. But if he just makes quick decisions like he's been doing, and I think we would be okay. Just keep getting the balls to those tight ends and whatnot. Make quick decisions. Those guys won't impact you as much. So I feel like we can do that.
Yeah. I mean, this seems like more of a quote unquote redemption game in a sense for our defense, because it's a similar test in that the QBs like to run, their run game. If we're going to be able, especially with that 4-2-5, which a lot of people had been complaining about before the season even started. But what we're going to do, because, honestly, we need our O-line to be solid the entire game. We need to have that pass protection from Milroe because I do think that we're going to see a lot of plays in the air. We need to go ahead and establish the run, which we should have done already, but we need to see that as well in this game. And before we jump to the next topic, I think we had a super chat, right, that we wanted to shout out. I don't want to overlook any super chats. So shout out to 334 Guh. I know. Thank you for the super chat. They could have let me call the defense from my couch. The D-line needs to get ferocious and the captains need to be more vocal. I mean, you said it. Look, we got to call the coaches out, right? Because they getting on there doing press conferences, not really taking ownership for their part in the failure, because that was a failure on all sides. Not necessarily the offense. I think if anything, the offense, it was more play calling than anything. The offense seemed, they did pretty well, but I agree with you. And with you, he Womack can step up or step out. I need that on a shirt too. I mean, look, if we need to go ahead and get some more shirts, we can. Let me tell you something, because Kane Womack, you can go right back down there to South Alabama with that mess. That may have worked down there. This is a whole different playing field. And my thing too, and this may be a good coaching moment, like mentor-mentee moment between Coach DeBoer and Nick Saban, right? I mean, because we talk about Coach Saban having his office, right? And so it makes me wonder what that level of relationship looks like when it comes to a moment like this. To me, this is a moment where you have Coach Saban, the mentor, sit Coach DeBoer down and explain to him, like, look, this is the SEC. This is what maybe y'all should have done, and this is probably what you should do going forward. So I'm just curious what those conversations may have been and how close of a relationship, they still have. I don't know.
And I think Coach Saban, if he did do that, he should go to DeBoer in private. Don't go in front of the team, because then he will lose the team if Saban's got to come down from his throne to talk to DeBoer's team about discipline and doing the right thing. He need to pull DeBoer to the side, talk to him. Then DeBoer need to go relay the message to the players.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
You lose the team.
You lose the team. Yeah.
No, you can't lose the team.
I agree 100%. Now, before we transition into just talking about our players a little bit more in terms of our game against South Carolina, I do want to shout out our other sponsor, WhitwellSports.com. We always tell you that your game day is not the same without a title towel. JB, go ahead and hold it up. Let him know. Now, he's had his for a few years.
JB.
You got
okay, man.
I'm official now.
Okay. I gotta go. But I need to get one that's like, I'm gonna see if I can do a custom order because I like to be like decked out and stuff. So I'm gonna see if I can do a custom order.
You gonna get a bedazzled one. You want one with the diamonds and sparkles on it.
Yeah, I mean, I may have to put in a custom, or I could just because a lot of my stuff I do myself. So we'll see. I don't know if they'll do a custom order, but we'll see. This is WhitwellSports.com, and be sure to use promo code STANDARD to receive an exclusive discount. And be sure to buy them in bulk and ship them down to Auburn ahead of the Iron Bowl. Make sure they get them in time, just so that they know who runs the state of Alabama. So now let's transition a little bit into who from Alabama has more to prove in this game. I'm gonna kick it off first with Dan. Dan, who from Alabama, and you can if you want to name specific coaches, specific players, or even position groups in particular, who would you say?
Well, I said Malachi Moore, and I'm gonna stick with him.
Okay,
let's put this last game behind you.
They got you tired, huh?
Yeah. I mean, man,
they wore you out.
Yeah, it wore me out, man. It was a strenuous week. We still talking about it, but it's South Carolina week. So, Malachi, you're the leader. You're the captain, two-time captain. Let's get out there, let's rally the troops, and let's go out there and put together a defensive performance for 4 quarters. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm looking for. You and Deontay Lawson, I'm going to call the two captains out of the defense. Yeah. And I'm going to pose that same question. I see some of y'all in the chat are answering this, but I'm going to, for those who haven't chimed in just yet, anyone in particular, including the coaches that you feel like has the most to prove in this matchup this weekend against South Carolina, drop it in the chat and include why you feel that way. Now, so it sounds like, Dan, you're more focused on just the defense in and of itself, right? Like none aside from Malachi Moore specifically, but the entire defense. Yes, the defense. That's the problem. Our offense can score, but they got to get on the field. Exactly. Time possession 42 minutes to 18. I mean, that's not a good recipe. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Now, JB, who do you have? Any specific players, coaches, or position groups that have the most to prove?
Well, Dan uncovered the defense, so I'm gonna move to the offense, and I'm gonna say Nick Sheraton. When we do get on the field, please use somebody else other than Ryan Williams, Milroe. I mean, he's using the tight ends. I will give him credit. He's using the tight ends more. But guess what? He was a tight ends coach. So, of course, he's going to use the tight ends more. But you're still not using Justice and Jam Miller. You got to use those running backs, man. I mean, 6-7 carries for the running backs. Now, Milroe did not run the ball that much this past game because we were behind. So we had to, rally from behind, try to rally from behind, and try to score quickly. Ryan Williams, I love me some Ryan Williams. But like I said last show, sharing the sugar, man, get some more guys involved. We are very talented. It's a lot of talent on this team. I just say get them involved, but especially the running back, she.
I feel you. No, I feel you on that. And I agree. We still need to establish the run, but really quickly. So we go back and think about our game against Georgia, right? That first half, that was one thing or pretty much throughout the game from an offensive perspective, that was one thing that everyone was talking about Nick Sheridan about, right? Like we saw more creativity. We saw him open up the playbook, and we talked about seeing at least 7 or 8 different receivers, even more than that when you talk about wide receivers and tight ends. Now, when you say, essentially Nick Sheridan and basically, I guess, seeing more out of him, more of that, him opening up the playbook. Are you specifically talking about utilizing the running backs, or are you saying we want to see more receivers than just Ryan Williams? Is it both?
Kind of like that. Yeah. The first half.
Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard,
yes. Yeah, I mean, so basically he's been using the tight ends. I like that a lot. I really
Me
do.
Too.
Running, I mean, the wide receivers now to his defense, Law was hurt. Kobe Prentice got banged up. So we were shorthanded on that this past weekend. Yeah. But like you just mentioned, the Georgia game, the first half.
Mhm.
Miro was out there willing and dealing, throwing to 7 to 8 different people, throwing to the running backs. It was beautiful to watch.
He was about to throw it to Nick Saban.
Hey, damn near did.
I know. I mean, he had fun out there.
He was willing and dealing, man. And like E-Man, get him.
Yep.
Yes.
Cole Adams.
Yeah, get him involved early.
Yeah.
Get Caleb Odom out there. I see Caleb Odom on the field, but he's not getting no targets.
Exactly.
So I don't really know exactly what's the process. Is Miro going through second, third, fourth progression, or is this play designed to go to a certain guy?
Yeah.
But either way, you get the guys on the field. If they're open, just give them the ball. Download some plays for other guys. Just keep a sustained drive, 6-7 minute drives. We've been scoring very quickly. I saw somebody in the chat said we haven't had one drive where we just eat the clock up late in the game. We tried to do it against Georgia. We could not do it. And I don't know, man. I just want to see more when we have the ball. Just get 6-7 yards a pop. Let's just go down the field. Give me a 12, 13 play drive.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, and that's where the run game comes in. So yeah, we there are no excuses. This weekend would be perfect to see that. So there are no excuses at this point. Now, I will say from my side, who I feel like have the most to prove, I feel Kane Womack for sure. I'm gonna call him out. But of course, the whole defense. I mean, we need to see more. We saw some of it in the game against Georgia. We need to see that consistently every single game, 4 quarters. I still want to see us establish the run and then also reduce the penalties. You know, we look at the offensive line, you know, making sure that we're good on both sides of the O-line, you know, the right and the left, and making sure we're solid, because we still have to, of course, Jalen Milroe, he's the most athletic, but we still need to make sure we're protecting him back there, because that's probably going to be the number one target for most of these teams, to just try to get him down. So, you know, we have to make sure we're doing our part up front. Now, I want to kind of pivot a little bit because I want to make sure we have time for our Q&A and just quickly give our score predictions for the game this weekend and also our players of the game. Now, I want those in the chat, those who are watching, go ahead and even those who are watching on X right now, if there's a chat on X, if not, head over to YouTube and type in the Bama Standard. But drop in the chat, what do you think the score prediction is going to be this weekend against South Carolina? And then who are your players of the game on both sides of the ball? Now, for me, I have 38-7, 2 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns, and then 1 field goal. And then as far as the players of the game, I'm going with a running back. I think either Justice Haynes or Jam Miller, more so because it's time. I mean, it's been time for them. And then also on defense, I have either someone at that bandit position, maybe like LT Overton or Jamarian Latham, or someone at that wolf position, possibly Quindarius Robinson, you know, maybe, I don't know, maybe Keanu, but we have to see some, because that's going to be key as well. You know, you look at some of South Carolina's, their losses, particularly to LSU and Ole Miss, them being able to get that quarterback down multiple times throughout the game. We're going to have to be able to do that as well. So those are my guys. Dan, I'll go with you really quickly. What's your score prediction and then your player of the game on both sides?
Well, I got 34-31 Alabama.
34 to what?
31. I've been low
Who gonna
balling
get 31?
the offense. Yeah, we haven't held anybody under 30 in a minute, so that's where I'm at now. That's where I'm at.
No.
That's where I'm at with Kane Womack. You know, I'm gonna give you 31, man. I'm gonna give you 31.
Dan.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, I'm so surprised.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
what?
He has broken me. You know.
No.
Yeah, I predicted Vanderbilt having 0 last week, and they
did.
rolled up 40. So,
Yes, you did.
Yeah,
You did. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like,
Players of
no.
the game, Jalen Milroe, you know, he's still my guy. And on the defense, I'm gonna say it's gonna be a guy that they're gonna go after. They're gonna pick on. I'm gonna say Red Morgan, defensive player of the game.
Okay. Another freshman. Okay. Hopefully. Now that 34-31, I rebuke that. We can't let this.
I've been lowballing the opponents all year long. So
Dan lost all faith in the defense.
Oh my gosh, that's sad. Okay, well, hopefully it's not that. But JV, what are your thoughts? What are your score predictions and players of the game?
The defense gonna step up this week.
Yeah.
I think 45 for the offense, and we hold them to 10. So I'm gonna go 45-10.
I love it.
Yeah, 45-10. Players of the game on offense. CC, you said one of the running backs. I'm going Jam Miller because I like what I've seen from Jam when he does get the ball. He seems to have a nose for the end zone. He seems to, can bust a big play open. I think Jehiem Miller has one of those games, go for 170, 180 on the ground, 2 or 3 touchdowns. I'm going Jehiem Miller. Defensively, give me Q Rob. I'm going Q Robinson with multiple sacks in this game.
Yeah.
Multiple. 2 or 3.
2 or 3. Yeah. Okay. Well, y'all heard it here. I mean, it sounds like we're all besides the score predictions. Yeah. It sounds like we're kind of, all in agreement to some degree. And then, shout out to the chat because we love to see y'all live in the chat. Shout out to y'all. Be sure to continue to drop, questions that you may have. And speaking of which, let's transition over to the Q&A. Any specific questions from the audience? Let's see what we have. Send us some good ones.
What we got?
Okay, well, let's start things off then. Michael Fields, who are the real leaders of this team? Well, then we need to take
a you want to talk about it?
Well,
he's passing it off to you, Dan.
Yeah, it's Jalen's team, I say it's Jalen, Malachi, that's why it was bad for the other players to see him carrying on like that, to be the leader of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely Jalen Milroe, Malachi Moore. Those are 2 leaders of this team, without a doubt.
And I'll throw in Deontay Lawson and Tyler Booker as well.
Yeah. I was thinking Deontay Lawson as well. Yeah. That was a good question. I like it. I think
it makes you question it though, because of what happened this past weekend. Now you questioning, damn, who are the leaders?
But honestly though, think back when Coach Saban retired, right? And all the guys that decided to leave, the ones that was running their mouth. You have Malik Benson take his behind down there to Florida State, talking about the chemistry and just the vibe in the Florida State locker room was just better than Alabama. I'm like, well, maybe you should have been there in the first place. But, I feel like those leaders were there, and maybe because a lot of times you do kind of figure out who the real leaders are amidst adversity. So, I do feel like maybe this past weekend, some of it did have to do with the coaching. And of course, Malachi Moore was there when Pete Golden was acting like he didn't have any sense either. So maybe it could have been, some of that deja vu, like, I know we're not going back down this path again. So we can only hope to see better days. So what's the next question? Kenneth, shout out to you. What's going on with Campbell? Was that a lookalike or something? I mean, he had on a jersey, but
scheme. You put in a bad situation.
Yeah.
Bad situation. I mean, yeah, he had to fight off a guard and a center just to make the tackle, So
that's true.
He was just put in bad situation.
And it looked like he was wore out toward the end of the game.
Yeah,
I mean, guys were just like running by. He couldn't wrap up and grab him and take him to the ground. It seemed like he was wore out.
He leaned on us the whole game. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
They 40 minutes. You got to think he was on the field for 42 minutes.
Yeah. That's a lot. Honestly, we need Coach DeBoer to stop trying to be their friend.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just call it what it is. He's nice. It's like you've been there for a few months now. Stop trying to be their friend. It's kind of like the parents who don't discipline their children, but they're just nice with them, and then they grow up and they're just all over the place. You don't get anywhere without, really being firm with the guys, because and to me that they will respect you more. So I really feel like with Campbell, the different guys that we've been calling, these are the best players in the nation, right? But the coaches aren't necessarily playing up to their strengths and coaching up to their strengths, if you will. So honestly, I mean, with Campbell, we've been seeing him every game. It's not like, I mean, you look at the numbers, maybe it was a little quieter against Vanderbilt, but the coaching was horrendous, so there's really no other way to put it, honestly. Michael Fields, do you feel like our offense is too Ryan Williams dependent? I'm gonna say no. And I say that because we have too many weapons, and we would like to think that from an offensive coaching perspective, Nick Sheridan, he has some tricks up his sleeve, and I feel like a part of that is you would assume that the opponent every single week they're gonna think in their minds, okay, well surely they're not gonna target Ryan too much because they know we're gonna probably double cover him, but I mean, I don't feel like it's necessarily intentional to be honest. I mean, I honestly feel like our game against Vanderbilt, I believe that Kobe Prentice would have been that guy had he not gotten hurt. You know, I don't think it would have been some of the other guys that we saw, which it really just was a few, you know, because Caleb Odom out there blocking, he should have been catching some balls, you know. So, but what do y'all think? Do y'all have any thoughts?
I mean, Bernard made a great catch on the sideline, a great clutch catch. I think Bernard is very capable of being that guy, but Ryan Williams just seems to have he's gained the trust very quickly to be called upon when we need a big play. I mean, he's not always the guy, the big play, because he's catching some balls, you know, 10, 15 yards, get the first down, get down. He's not always going deep. And I would say that. But most of the time, when it's a big play to be made, Ryan Williams is gonna go get it and he's gonna make the play. So you got to keep going to him if he's making the big plays. Why not go away from it?
Yeah. The answer to that question, no. You know, he's only getting 8 to 10 targets a game, which is, you know, common for wide receiver number 1. So that's not too dependent. Now, if you're getting 20 targets a game, we could say that. But no, he's just making plays when he gets his opportunity. So no, that he's making plays which you would expect from wide receiver number 1.
Yeah. Okay.
Well said.
All right. Yeah, that was a good question. Injury update. Shout out to Ephraim. Yeah. So it was said today that Kendrick Law and Kobe Prentice, they're questionable. You know, so we probably won't know until leading up to the game, maybe even the day of. It looks like Yaze Pierre, he's still out. Justin Jefferson, possibly good to go. So it sounds like we probably won't know for sure, you know, with Kendrick Law, Kobe Prentice, and then Justin Jefferson, maybe until we're getting closer to the game. So
we'll reach out to Steve and them and find out.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. Toughest nails. Was DeBoer's decision to defend Malachi the right decision, or should he have disciplined his actions? One thing I'm big on emotional regulation, right? And I feel like there are certain things, like even when you're in that moment, like the emotions are high or whatever, just take a step away, just step away from it, because the last thing that you want to do, especially against a little raggedy team like Vanderbilt, well, they want to see, it's almost like somebody that's just trying to get a reaction out of you. You don't give them that, right? Like you don't play into that, you know. And I get it, you know, the type of game it was and just that embarrassment that he probably felt or whatever. But you know, as a senior and the captain, that's something that, and honestly, he should have done that in that locker room at halftime. I would have tore that whole locker room up. Like, matter of fact, we ain't going back there on that field until we know from the coaches that y'all gonna do something about this, like that. And I get the frustration, but you never want to give your opponent, if you will, that upper hand to know that they got to you in that way. So I'm big on emotional regulation. But do y'all have any thoughts on that?
I don't have a problem if he handled it in private. I don't have a problem with that because it's kind of like a family issue. Even though Malachi acted out in public, if he wants to, you know, reprimand him in private, that's fine with me. As long as they are on one accord. You can't have him define the coaches and whatnot. So we'll see what happens from here on out if they are still on one accord and the team is behind them 100%. We'll see that from here on out.
Yeah. Hold on. Let me just let me ignore some of that trash I see in that chat. Cause you know, it's not worth it. We're still Alabama, y'all here on our network. Just remember that we still Alabama. Shout out to Latoya Billingsley. Do you think that's where Malachi's frustration came from, being put in a bad defensive position? Dan, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think they were put in a bad position, but that's something, you know, you acknowledge at halftime, not when, you know, the other team is in victory formation. You know, so I can guarantee you that's a big part of where it came from, you know. And you know, he gave up a big crucial play, a crucial touchdown at the end, you know, maybe that was part of it too. So, you know, it's just a young guy venting his frustration. You know,
they weren't mad at halftime though, because I was mad.
I was mad, you know. So.
I was ready to call somebody. Like, I'm just like, I don't know what this mess is, but y'all need, like, this is not like no April Fools. Like, get this mess off of my screen.
Right.
Like, what?
I wasn't even worried at halftime because I was like, come on, man. We started off bad. We're going to win. I didn't get worried until
I equated to being tied with Citadel at halftime, 7 years back with you,
I mean, I think the thing that had me feeling some type of way at halftime was that I noticed that change in like the energy when we came out. I know, when we played Georgia, it was at home. However, I noticed that difference, right? Like the guys seemed like they were half asleep or something. Like they just kind of, oh yeah, we here to play. We know we're going to win. And my thing is like, you got to keep that energy up every single game, regardless of who you play. And that's a part of Coach Saban, that standard that he set. He's like, it don't matter who we playing, if it's just Citadel or anybody else. Like we come out there the same way. You can't assume. We got to understand that these little raggedy teams out here, they're circling Alabama on their schedule. That's their national championship. Vanderbilt, they did all that hooping and hollering, tore down that goalpost like they never had anything in life, and they didn't even end up in the top 25, nor did we fall out of the top 10 like they thought we would have. So, I mean, all that was for nothing, really. I mean, I'm just saying, like, but anywho, any other questions? Jeremy Matthew, shout out to you. What's going on with Keon Keeley? Yeah, it's been very quiet this season. Y'all heard anything with him? Or
another guy that we changed his body type again. We're trying to fit him into our defensive scheme. It's just a numbers thing right now. Maybe he'll get more opportunity with the Otis situation, but Otis wasn't playing much himself, so we will see.
Yeah, and I got a comment about that. I mean, a lot of these guys were already on the team, for before the new coaches came with the new scheme. It seems like they're trying to fit these guys into the scheme, so to speak. Like Dan just mentioned, changing their body types, changing the style that they play, and maybe it's not working as well as they thought it was going to work. So you may get a lot of frustration from that. Like, okay, we're not really used to playing this way. It's different from practice. You on the game field.
Yeah.
This is real time. Like you can't make mistakes out there against a team who wants to beat you.
Yeah.
This ain't practice, dog. Y'all need to get that together before y'all get on the playing field. So
it's so crazy. Yeah, it's so crazy that you say that, because I had said on the post-game show this past weekend that when they put the camera on Coach DeBoer and just kind of panning the camera, it literally looked like they were at a scrimmage game. And I'm like, is this A-Day? It literally looked like they felt like they were at practice, so I don't know. Yeah. But, you know what? I want to challenge the former players, though. I don't know how connected they still are, especially with Alabama with the new coaching staff. But I want to see some of them go back, sit down with the players, but talk to the coaches. I want to see Coach Saban, while you have an office there, use your what is it, like, more so your, not just your leadership, but just your influence that you still have on that campus and in those offices behind closed doors. And y'all got to speak something to these coaches, because otherwise they can hit that portal too, early. Sure. So we need to hurry up and do something. Get Kevin Steele out of retirement. Go call up Jeremy Pruitt or somebody. Go to Georgia and get Kirby Smart to come back, because their players keep getting arrested. So I'm sure he ain't too happy. So I don't know, but we need to wrap this up quickly. Whatever these issues are, we got to get this, because look, 2 weeks when we go out there to Tennessee,
must win game.
That's what I'm saying. That when they lost their game, that right there I'm like, yeah, this is going to be probably the biggest game of this. They talked about Alabama and Georgia. That's going to be the one. So whoever wins that one, that's going to be that. But as we get ready to wrap up, we have a couple minutes left. Any other questions from anyone? Justin, that we have? LaToya, I think we already covered that one. Malachi's frustration. Any other ones that we may need to... Let's see. Okay, Jeremy Matthews, do you think the podcast that Ryan Williams and Mbakwe are doing, do you think they should do that in the off season and not during the season? I feel like that would be a distraction. That's very interesting. I've seen some of the episodes and I like what they're doing. I do think from a brand, I look at things from a branding perspective. I feel like from a branding perspective, it's good so that people can kind of learn about them from a personal, perspective. But I do kind of think that that's something that you do want to do off. And maybe they did record, there's a good chance that unless they're going live with those episodes, there's a good chance that they pre-recorded it, possibly. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. And that's the right strategy, to pre-record it before the season starts. But that's a good question, though. That's a good question. All right. Well, all right. Well, thank you for the questions. And be sure to note any questions that you have like during the game. Have them in your back pocket so that you have them for our episode next week. Because, of course, we'll be getting ready for Tennessee. So, but we do have Teek's Take tonight here on the Bama Standard Network, airing at 8:15 Central Standard Time, 9:15 Eastern Standard Time. Be sure to check them out.
Yeah.
And then Dan, you got something. You smiling a lot. You want to take
like, this out.
Hey.
If y'all want to see some net punches over again, he gonna break it down. He gonna lay it out for you.
No, look, I thought you were smiling because you wanted to change your score prediction at 34-31 because that sounded like a mistake, man.
No. I'm just interested. I'm gonna watch the Teague Take tonight, and I'm a glutton for punishment, y'all. I'm gonna sit there and watch.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check it out too, y'all. Check that out tonight, and then Saturday we have, of course, the post game show, the Bama Standard post game show immediately after the game. So be sure to tune in so we can give our immediate reactions after we beat South Carolina. And then Sunday we have Sunday Nights Talking Bama with JB and Josh Tucker, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. This is the JB that we're talking about. So be sure to tune in. So they'll give their reactions to our game against South Carolina. Really quickly, any social media or any other shows that y'all want to promote? JB, I'll start with you.
Y'all can follow me on Twitter X at young_ENT_. Follow my YouTube channel, Sports Talking with JB. I do shows on Tuesday. I got a show tonight, Alabama State University. The Black and Gold show's going down tonight. And find me on Talking Bama. I'll be right here each and every Sunday on Sunday Night Talking Bama and on the Crimson Dynasty with you guys.
Awesome. Like I said, he's our latest co-host addition to the Crimson Dynasty. So shout out to you, JB. And then Dan, any other shows, any social media that you want to share?
Yeah, you can catch me on Twitter X at Final Whistle Dan. Catch me right here on this very network every Tuesday night. The Final Whistle, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. Every Wednesday night with the great cast here, the Crimson Dynasty, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Central.
All right, there you go.
Like and subscribe button.
All right, yeah. Let them know. Like, if y'all haven't subscribed already, I don't know what y'all waiting for. So you're gonna miss some really good content. You're gonna miss some reactions too, because we be posting reactions. And then you can find me on the Crimson Dynasty. But we also have another show that's airing Thursday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The plan is to go live tomorrow with our very first official episode. So it'll be myself, Jonathan Lewis, Daniel Petty, and then possibly Ty. So yeah, that'll be a good one. It's the Roll Tide Cafe. And then you can find me on X. I'm going to start back using X. Oh, my goodness. You can find me on there. It's official Cici, but it's without the apostrophe. So official CCHI. And then on Instagram, beauty_of_intelligence. And that will do it. So without further ado, roll tide roll. We're going to beat up on the Gamecocks. We're going to send them back to South Carolina where they belong. We're going to beat up on Tennessee and then Missouri for homecoming because y'all ain't rolling up in Tuscaloosa with none of that. Like, we've been that. And yeah, y'all can feel however y'all want to feel. I don't care nothing about that. So anyway, roll tide roll. Any final words from y'all? Y'all good?
Yeah, beat them cocks. No duty.
What? Dan.